Alrighty, guys. Well, if the title of this segment and if the title of this podcast episode, YouTube video, whatever platform didn't give it away, this is really going to be a spoiler discussion. We are here to talk about Peacemaker Season 2, Episode number 6, titled, and maybe even the title is a little bit of a spoiler, but titled, Ignorance is Chris. So, again, first few seconds of this segment, if you have not seen Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 6, and you are still listening, make sure to save the segment, save the podcast, save the video for later, and come back once you have, because we're going to be diving fully into spoilers. Let's do it. Okay, so, I mean, I usually give a lot of context here. I'm going to give a much shortened version of it because I think it's important. But basically, James Gunn has been saying for a while now, yeah, episodes 1 through 5 is one story, and then episodes 6 through 8, it gets crazy. He's been saying this for a long time. It gets crazy. There are some spoilers potentially, cameos, things like that. And you know, so much so that he didn't even give episodes 6 through 8 to the critics. He only gave episodes 1 through 5 because he really wanted to protect what was going on into episodes 6 through 8. And that's all well and good, right? That's all well and good. Me personally, though, I'm not a big fan of when directors do that. I think, you know, wouldn't it have been so cool if James Gunn had just said nothing at all and then bam, episode 6 happens? I think regardless of what you think about episode 6, if you like it, if you like the twists, if you like the cameos and whatnot, regardless of if you knew or not, wouldn't it have been cooler, I think, if you just didn't know? And you just kind of went in and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow. And the other part of this equation is the fact that people online figure things out really quickly. It doesn't take, you know, the deepest, darkest internet rabbit holes to kind of find theories that match up to what's going on here. And granted, it's not like James Gunn was hiding everything so secretively, right? I mean, he was planting flags throughout that. Of course, there were no other people of color in this dimension, and you just kind of had to look for it. I don't know, personally, if I would have caught it. I'd like to think that I would have. I think that one of the things I would have seen immediately, or one of the things I would have intuited, is that a word? Intuited, right? Immediately is the fact that, okay, if you're setting up Chris Smith to go into this parallel universe where everything is going right and everything is good and all, that's, you know, that's a good setup. But if it's happening so early in this series, you have to imagine, right? Because he went into this dimension in episode 3, you have to imagine that something is off with this universe at some point. So I think that at some point, even if I wasn't thinking to look for this kind of stuff, I think I would have started to look for it at some point and been like, yeah, that's kind of weird that everyone is white in this universe. That's kind of strange, right? Kind of weird. And again, though, I mean, people are smart on the internet and people point things out and people know comic books. I think the first one who I heard pointed out was Nando, who does some YouTube videos about movies, and he was immediately on this theory. He's been talking about this for literally since episode 3, I think. And yeah, I mean, it turns out it's exactly what people thought it was. It's based on what I think in the comics is called Earth X, which is basically what if World War II was won by the Nazis and America is basically a Nazi regime. And that's a terrifying revisionist kind of historical fiction world. But that's the world we apparently are in now in this Peacemaker season. And so we'll talk about at the end of the segment what that means for potentially moving forward. But let's kind of wind our way backwards. So first of all, I said last week, you know, I think Peacemaker Season 2 is a sloppier version of Peacemaker Season 1. It has all the elements. It has all the good things, you know, the humor, the action, the acting, and the fun banter and dialogue and things like that. But it feels like the overall story is not as cohesive as it wants to be. And I think that that's fine. It is what it is. But I think that, you know, you can kind of see sometimes in these episodes where it just starts to lose focus a little bit. For example, I really liked the vigilante payoff. I thought that, you know, you kind of saw that coming, right? Well, you can't have two vigilantes be exactly the same, right? Turns out, yes, the key difference between the two is that vigilante from Earth 2, I guess we're calling it. I don't know if it's going to be called Earth X or Earth 2 or whatever. But from Earth 2 is a Son of Liberty who was the terrorist group that I said, you know, terrorists. They're calling them terrorist group, but the quote unquote terrorist group. Although I believe they were still kind of violent in that episode. Anyways, there's a lot of stuff going on there. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're in opposition to this Nazi regime or whatever's going on in this universe. And so our Peacemaker just brutally murders all of them, which is in hindsight just a crazy thing. It's very reminiscent of what happens in the Suicide Squad, right, where he and Bloodsport just go on and kill everybody, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, you kind of assumed, okay, well, these two vigilantes can't be exactly the same, and that I love the payoff where he's like, yeah, I hate Peacemaker. That's why I joined to be the Son of Liberty. And I'm like, that's great. That's a really good ending to that payoff. The payoff being to a joke that lasted for 10 minutes, not 10 minutes, like 5 to 10 minutes of just two vigilantes being ridiculous. And honestly, the stuff with Vigilante's basement room and his mom, it's funny, but when you're watching the episode and trying to go along with it, you're like, okay, Rick Flag, you're going to Belle Reve. What does that mean? It turns out it means Lex Luthor, and Peacemaker. We got to go get Peacemaker and got to go find him in the other dimension. And then there's all these side things that are going on. So it's those moments where I'm a little bit thinking, it's just losing focus a little bit. The show is, and honestly, it's such an interesting show, right? Peacemaker season 2, because I don't know, frankly, if I would be having the same experience if I watched Peacemaker season 2 in one shot. Because I watched Peacemaker season 1 in one shot. I watched multiple episodes in a row on given days, and I got through it in about a week or a week and a half, when a couple months after it originally aired. And so with the benefit of having that happen, I got to see the overall story, and that story feels more cohesive to me. I also recently did a rewatch for our DCEU rewatch series, which that podcast will hopefully come out sometime in the near future. But it feels cohesive, right? It feels like there's a story being told with the butterflies and that plot. This season just feels a little bit more like it's wandering around and kind of jumping to thing to thing. For the first 5 episodes, we have doors moving around. We have Michael Rooker's character who just kind of comes out of nowhere and doesn't really do anything. Honestly, the whole Primeval Eagle stuff just completely took me out of last episode. And now we have this whole thing going on here. And there are parts of this episode I really like. I like, the second Adebayo was like, I'm going out for a walk, I was like, oh no. Because you knew the second that John didn't follow her, right? You were like, oh no, a black woman walking on the street in a universe where presumably they just hate people of color. That's just, it's oh no. And then I also actually really liked the conversation between Chris and our Amelia, right? Amelia from, I guess, Earth 1 or whatever we're calling it. The multiverse, man, the multiverse. Amelia, and again, I'm not hating on the multiverse in general. I'm sure that when Secret Wars comes out, I'm gonna, lose my mind or whatever. But anyways, just conceptually kind of ready for the multiverse to be done with, but that is what it is. But yeah, I really liked the conversation between our Chris and our Amelia, where she really lets loose and she says, I have a hard time feeling things. I just don't feel things, and it's hard for me. And I thought that was a really poignant conversation. So, that was good. And of course, let's talk about the Lex Luthor of it all. When he said Belle Reve, I was like, is it a creature commando? Honestly, I wouldn't have minded. I don't know why he would have talked to a creature commando, but I guess this made more sense in hindsight. When it was a human and you didn't see his head, the second I saw the kind of physique, I was like, oh, it's Lex Luthor. Makes total sense here. And of course, James Gunn has been saying that Peacemaker season 2 is going to directly set up Man of Tomorrow, the follow-up to Superman. So that does make a lot of sense here. Now, interestingly enough, also just on a side note, I said last episode, I generally don't watch on next week's episode, little teasers at the end of these episodes. I generally don't, because I'm like, I'll just wait a week and watch it. It's fine. Not a big deal. But last episode, I actually did watch the teaser because James Gunn has been constantly saying episode 6 through 8, it's going to be crazy. Things are going to get wild. And I was like, okay, I'll watch the teaser just to see if something has been teased that the whole internet's going to go crazy about. Nothing, right? Nothing was there. This time, though, I did the same thing, just thinking, yeah, I might as well for the next couple episodes, just see what's going on. And this time, I think my quote-unquote patience was rewarded or my lack of patience, I guess, was rewarded because looks like they're already teasing some big cameo in next week's episode. I can't tell. Is that person who Rick Flag was talking to, is that person identifiable? Because I couldn't really tell. It was a quick second of this man speaking, but I don't know who that could be. I literally no clue. So I guess they're teasing another cameo. I know James Gunn has talked about some big surprises in the last couple episodes. But yeah, I mean, we're in this universe now. All of them are. Rick Flag is apparently going to go head towards that universe, and that's all well and good. What now? I mean, so this is the classic story of, okay, the bubble, the rose-tinted glasses fall off, the bubble breaks, the bubble bursts, rather, and now what, right? And so now Chris, I'm presuming, has to really, Chris is not a bad person. Like, he loves Adebayo, and he would never, I don't think, you see his reaction to seeing that twisted flag, right? He would never willingly be in this universe. I think the title of the episode of Ignorance is Chris really is telling of, he just wanted to see what he wanted to see, which was Harcourt and his family, and that really, really, really blinded him, because one had to assume he saw the Nazi symbols, but I don't know, maybe he didn't. But now the question becomes, what happens now, right? And it's like, okay, he has to really make a decision of, I got to fight for my friends, and I got to fight for the people who really are really the people who are going to stand up for me. And I think that that'll be a good resolution to the series. I'm thinking about the series as a whole as we head towards the last 2 episodes, and I'm thinking about the fact that it's just been uneven. And I think I like a lot of what's going on in this season. I also think there's a lot to be desired still, and I'm curious to see what that looks like. But I'm also, I don't know. I'm in a weird place with Peacemaker Season 2, where I think on balance, I'm enjoying it, right? I'm enjoying it definitely more than Creature Commandos for sure. But I also am not, I'm finding parts of the episodes where I'm just sitting back and going, what is going on? In this episode, it was the Vigilante stuff for the most part. In last week's episode, it was the Michael Rooker stuff. So again, it's been a weird balance for me, but I'm excited and curious to see what happens next. I just kind of hate, again, the fact that we all had to go, episode 6, 7, and 8, it's going to be crazy, can't wait for the cameos, because literally, as I was hitting play on HBO Max, I sat back in my chair and I went, so what cameo am I going to see today? And that's not how I want to generally approach TV shows, but it just kind of is how these things have been framed thus far. So we'll see who shows up in next week's episode. But I hope, whatever it is, because I think Lex Luthor's cameo in this episode really did service the story in an interesting way, and it was good to see Nicholas Hoult again. But I'm hoping that the cameos are like that. I think James Gunn knows that, and so whoever shows up in next episode, in episode 8, I hope that they service the story really well. Guys, what did you think of Peacemaker Season 2, episode 6? What do you think about the big twist? What do you think about Lex Luthor? Let me know in the comments down below.